What is going on, you guys, and welcome back to another video. In today's video I'm gonna give you my settings that I use to get crystal clear image with the DJI FPV drone. I'm also gonna show you some tips on how I also get the perfect exposure, because we don't have any zebras and we don't want to fly in auto mode, we want to fly in manual mode. So I'm gonna show you some tips on that as well, how I adjust for the perfect exposure and what worked for me. So without further ado, let's jump over to the goggles so we can go through the settings that I use for this DJI FPV drone. So let's take a look at my settings for the DJI FPV drone. It's quite basic, but I use transmission quality of high because I usually don't fly further away than 300 meters. Even though I've tried to fly 2000 meters, I didn't see any issues with the quality of the goggles and controllers and drone and all of that. So I'm just gonna stick with high quality to get the best possible view in the goggles. Now, video quality, I shoot in 4K 60 and I also shoot in MP4, and I also shoot in H.265. I find this to give the best quality after I rendered the video, and when I rendered in H.264, I had some issues with when I was flying through or close to trees and branches and stuff. I had some artifacts coming up in the structure of the trees, which I had a problem removing. So that's why I'm also sticking with H.265. Now the next one here is recorded with. I keep this on both as I want to have the goggles recording what the drone is recording and the other way around. So in this case, or in worst case, if I lose the drone, I still have the footage. Not that that is something that I want to do, but I worst case, I keep the footage. Now, auto record on takeoff, I don't really like to use this because I don't want to take up more space of the SD card, so I don't want to waste anything when I'm taking off trying to adjust the settings and so on, so I keep this off. Electronic image stabilization is on. This is a must if you're gonna record cinematic videos. So distortion correction, this is basically just, do you want to see the propellers in your video or not? So I keep this on aircraft and goggles because I don't want to see the propellers in the goggles or in the final video I shoot with the drone. But if you want to see the propellers in the goggles when you are flying, but you don't want to have it in the final outcome of your video, then you're gonna choose aircraft only on this setting. Now, image roll correction, I don't even know what that is, so I'll just leave it like that. And the video codec, as I mentioned, H.265, and color decine-alike is what I use. I find it really easy to grade. It's the same with the Osmo Action and other DJI products. It's really easy to color grade, and you get a more dynamic range out of that color profile. So it's a really high recommendation from me to use that if you want to create cinematic videos. Now moving over to the camera parameters here, and this is where I have all my basic adjustments and settings basically. We have camera mode manual. This allows me to have more control over everything like ISO, shutter, white balance, and so on. And what I have here is ISO 100, always ISO 100, and I don't think that is going to be a problem when you fly this drone, because most of the times when you're flying, it's going to be sunny, it's going to be nice, so you can easily keep this down at 100. But when it comes to the shutter speed, this is a tricky one. You don't want to have a high shutter speed. You want this to be as low as possible. So the general rule is twice the shutter speed of what you are recording with. So I record in 4K 60, that means my shutter speed should be 1/120. Now, in some cases this is not even possible, but you will definitely need an ND filter to achieve that, and I'm gonna come back to that later in this video. I'm gonna show you some clips and samples and show you why this is my go-to when I'm flying this drone, and the other different settings on how I expose properly and all of that. So we're just gonna get to that in just a second. Now, the white balance that I use every single time for everything is 5500 Kelvin. I find this to be the easiest to work with in most scenarios. I'm not making like TV programs or anything like that. I'm more into those cinematic shots, and for 5500 Kelvin, this is what I find to be the best for me. You might go up to 6500 or whatever you decide to do, but 5500 is my settings when I'm flying this drone. Now let's take a look at some clips here so I can show you the example of how to get your exposure correct. Now this clip here is way overexposed and it's not usable for anything. Now this is though done in post-production just to show you the example. The clip didn't look like this at all, and also everything here is filmed in D-Cine-like unless anything else is shown here on the screen. Now before you start your cinematic recordings, it's really important that you pay attention to the sky when you change the shutter speed. Now, it doesn't matter how high you have the shutter speed if you're just gonna fly just for fun and it's just gonna be a basic something that you're gonna upload to show your friends and family and all of that. You can just go with the auto mode maybe, and that might give you the look that you want. But if you take a look at the sky here, once your sky has a washed out blue color to it, you are sorta in the right area of getting a good image. Since we don't have any zebras to help us, we need to do some testing first, and that's why I also wanted to make this video so you can get the same quality eventually as I get when I fly the DJI FPV drone. Now, if you haven't seen the latest video, the cinematic travel through the Norwegian fjords, make sure to check it out down in the description as well. This is it's just insane how good this FPV drone is. So another way that you can check if your sky is properly exposed, and let's say you have a struggle to see in the goggles with the color profile D-Cine-like, what you can do is to simply change from D-Cine-like over to the normal color profile for then to check and find the correct exposure, because it works as this. It's simple as this. What you see in the goggles is what you're gonna record and what you're gonna see when you come home and take a look at the footage. So if you have a struggle to see the washed out blue sky, you can simply change over to the normal color profile for then to adjust the exposure and everything so it looks good in your goggles, and then you can go back and change it to D-Cine-like right before you start recording. Now, when your exposure is correct and you're happy with the view that you have in your goggles, the final step is to add your own spice to it, your own color correction, your own LUTs to get that final cinematic look. Now, from my experience, shutter speed 200 to 500 works good in most scenarios unless you want to film directly towards the sun. Now, this is only if you use an ND filter. An ND filter works as sunglasses for our drone, and most of us already know that, but it's not only that, it also helps us achieve cinematic and natural motion blur. But if you're that person that only wants to fly for fun, upload a video now and then to share with your friends and family and not fly fast or close to objects, then you don't really need to invest in ND filters for your DJI FPV drone. Eventually, when you step up and you want to make those crazy cinematic videos, then you should go and invest in an ND filter. But if you really want a true cinematic feeling when you're editing your videos and you want others to see your professional crisp quality, then ND filters is what you need. And I reached out to pgytech when I first tested out this DJI FPV drone and asked if they could send over some ND filters for it. And I then took the filters, drove 2 hours up to the mountains here in Norway to see what I could get. The ND filters allowed me to maintain a low shutter speed of 200 using ND4 and ND8, and this is what I captured. And as I'm flying through and around and up and down, you can see the motion blur as I get close to trees, water and mountain cliffs and all of that, and this is only possible because I have a low shutter speed. The general rule goes as your shutter speed should be twice as your FPS. So I film in 4K 60, that means shutter speed should be 1/120, 60 times 2 equals 120. So I decided to stick with shutter speed of 1/200 actually, because it's so close to 120 or 120 that it won't make a huge difference anyway. And I found this to be, or to give me, the perfect result and exactly what I wanted to achieve when I filmed this. And I also turned on auto mode just to see what the shutter would be without ND filter, and a whopping shutter of 2000 is what I would need to get a half decent shot. So I also made a full cinematic video of my travel through some of the Norwegian fjords, which you can check out in the description below if you want to check out the full cinematic video from some of these clips which I've shown you in today's video. So there you have the settings that I use on a daily basis. Yeah, a daily basis. This has been, you know, I'm so addicted to this now. So every single day, I almost fly every single day when it's not raining or super windy outside, and it's so much fun. So we went up to the mountains, me and my father-in-law, did some filming and just drove home again. And then I just had to get back up to those mountains the next day, and it was even better. The zero clouds, and it was just zero wind up there, and just crazy. It was so nice. So I highly suggest that you check out the cinematic video, which it's the latest, the one that I uploaded. You can also see it down in the description if you want to check it out. And another thing, pgytech sent me these filters to test out. This is not a sponsored video. They did not pay me to say anything about their product. They just wanted to see my test of the ND filters, and I must say this really enhanced the quality for me. Not sure if it's gonna do it for you, depending on the scenery and what you want to film. If you're gonna fly this super slow, you know, you don't need an ND filter. This is just to create that additional motion blur. If you have issues with the flying like in bright conditions, sunny or just like bright cloudy days, you might as well just get an ND filter as well. ND4 should be enough for you. This is what I used most of the time, was ND4, and a shutter speed of 1/200. It works perfectly. Now you can also see what I mean about working perfectly in the cinematic edit that I did previously. I linked it down in the comments section as well if you want to check it out. So with that said, I really hope that you enjoyed this video and that you got some tips and tricks from how to, you know, improve your quality of the DJI FPV drone. And with that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.